Hey everyone, it's LS, and this is going to be the patch 11.11 notes rundown. And taking a quick look at it, it doesn't actually seem like it's affected by MSI. Generally, Riot tends to operate 2 weeks in the past when it comes to anything that has to do with competitive. So anything that we saw at MSI is probably not going to start showing its head until 11.12. And that's a little bit worrisome because then that means that we don't actually see any sort of meta changes until, I think, 11.13 in LCK, LEC, LCS, LPL, which I guess could be a little bit weird, especially given that competitive returns in less than 2 weeks. So we'll see what is going on. Azir, Q cost decrease, conquering Sands is going to go down by 15 at all ranks now. This isn't really what's gating Azir. I mean, being able to cast his Q a little bit more inside of laning phase is definitely going to help out his early sustain. It's going to help out his early trading and all this other good jazz. The thing is that Azir is one of those champions that is mostly turned into a stat checker for early laning phase, where if other champions just don't really have a lot to contend with him, then he'll come in as sort of like a neutralizing champion. But Azir, like other mages inside of the meta right now, is really harmed by the lack the dependency on mage items, pretty much. Mages, I've talked about this before in other patch rundowns, mages are way more dependent on the completion of their items than basically any other class. When you actually think about where they get their power or where it's derived from in terms of items, it's not really the recipe components at all. It's actually just the outright completion of the item. When you think about Void Staff, yeah, sure, it has ability power, and Belated Jewel is giving you like some magic penetration, but the reality is that the ability power doesn't really pack as big of a punch as some other classes' items. When you're trying to curve into the item itself, you're really reliant on the passive being completed. And that's where mages are actually suffering, with items just being so much more expensive, and again, the dependency on the completion of the item itself. Whereas other classes, a lot of their recipe items are really broken. I would probably argue that maybe Serrated Dirk is probably one of the best, or if not the best, recipe item that exists inside of the game. Zeal is another really prime candidate for another item that has a lot of recipe power. Now, I know that a lot of people might think something like Stopwatch that eventually builds into Zhonya's, but I don't think that's particularly just a mage item, especially not when you consider that Zhonya's Hourglass is basically completed when you already have the recipe items. You actually just have to complete the item outright because of inventory space, which is an entire different beast in itself. So, mage items in a weird spot. Azir is also in a weird spot, mostly because he doesn't have a very big mage item that he likes a lot. So, Elise, Spider Form on hit damage ratio decrease. This one, again, is primarily targeted at solo queue. I'm of the school of thought that Elise actually needs buffs, but we're not going to go down that avenue. Spider Form on hit damage ratio decrease. It's going to go down by 10%. I mean, it's not the end of the world, especially because, again, Elise isn't a champion that actually gets a lot of ability power, so it's not actually like she's losing too big of a punch off of her hit. Or she's not losing too big of a hit off of her punch. There we go. Sorry about that. Ezreal, base health regen growth and armor increased. This doesn't really do anything. Health regen growth. This just feels like I'm not actually really sure what to really think about this. His armor goes up by 2, and the health regen growth goes up by 0.10. So it's not super. Honestly, it just feels like someone forgot to do their homework and they just wrote something down last second. They turned it in at the Riot balance patch meeting. That's exactly what this feels like, but whatever. Graves, base AD growth increase. So this is really interesting. So now at level 4, I believe, or maybe it's level 5, Graves goes back to where he was at on 11.1. And he'll end up almost getting 2 longswords now at super late game, which it is pretty nice. This is actually a pretty sizable buff. He is getting a lot of free gold, and you can't really complain at that. I think that this is actually probably more impactful for lane Graves if anyone plays that still. I mean, lane Graves probably benefits from this a lot more than jungle Graves, because lane Graves is able to access his levels faster and thus able to utilize the base stat buff a lot better. Hecarim, Q bonus AD ratio increased, E damage ratio increased. Q Rampage, damage ratio 70%, bonus AD to 75%, bonus AD, devastating charge, 50% bonus AD to 55% bonus AD, and maximum damage ratio is up by 10%. So Riot's really trying to make Hecarim this glass cannon menace that just goes in and nukes, basically, as an AD variation. I mean, the issue is that from the jungle, you are pretty hard pressed to actually get a lot of damage because, again, junglers don't get as many items as other classes in the game, unless we're talking about inside of solo queue, or not classes, roles in the game, unless we're talking about solo queue, where yes, you can get unnaturally fed, but again, it's pretty hard to come by. And I mean, the fact that this is bonus AD means that I think he's incentivized to still not necessarily go Trinity Force, but I know some people are doing that. But what can you do? Lee Sin, E cooldown increased. E Tempest is going to go up by 1 point, so it's still down from where it was originally at. It was originally 10 seconds, went to 8, now it's back up to 9. This is going to be a nerf. Is it going to magically take him out of mid or top lane? No, absolutely not. Leona, W base damage decrease. W Eclipse is going to go from 60 to 200 to 45 to 185. Okay, so she's losing some damage on her all-in. Actually, this is pretty, I mean, it's a fair amount of damage if she trades with you, I guess, twice or 3 times over the course of the laning phase inside of early laning, because you're going to be maxing W first. So, I mean, it was a way to soften some of Leona's burst, which is totally fine. Is she still going to be able to 1v1 the 80 carry at 20 minutes? I mean, you bet your bottom dollar she is, of course. Mastery Q damage ratio decrease. Alpha Strike is going to go down by 10% AD, and Wuju style base damage is going to go up by 10 at all ranks. So, attack speed mastery is basically going to be getting some buffs here, whereas the Duskblade Essence Reaver build is going to be getting hit. Which predominantly relies on resets and then just nuking people with your Q and whatnot. So there's the change there. Attack speed mastery variations are buffed, but nuke builds are nerfed. Morgana, W damage against non-epic monsters decreased. W Tormented Shadow, 185 to 155%. So this definitely hurts. Now, Morgana does have one of the fastest clears in the game. So now the argument will end up becoming, is she still viable without that oppressive clear speed? And I think that the answer is probably still going to be yes if you need her. She does have a lot of other value. She has a lot of flex potency and whatnot. She is going down quite a bit, though. I mean, Riot has really dialed it back on her. And I think that she's still going to be able to be played even at this percent. She's just not going to be nearly as gross as she was before because, let's be honest, I mean, she was really on par with Season 9 Syndra and Karthus when it came to clear speed inside of the jungle. And now she's just getting dialed back a notch. Nautilus. E now deals increased damage against monsters. This is one that I don't totally know how it's going to impact things. Riptide now deals 150% increased damage against monsters. So it's not the 200% that was on PBE, but it is still going to be noticeable. Is it magically going to make him a jungler? I don't know. I mean, he can travel around the map pretty quick with his Q, even when he's inside of the jungle. He doesn't have terrain scaling, but Nautilus is one of those champions that actually doesn't need a lot of econ, so he might turn into something like Volibear inside of the jungle with a change like this, and that Volibear can't really go the distance. He can't keep up with the clear speeds of a lot of other junglers, but he has a lot of outright innate utility. And so I think in that regard, yeah, Nautilus could maybe see himself going into the jungle. Qiyana, W bonus movement speed decreased. W Terra Shape, bonus movement speed 5 to 13% to 3 to 11%. I mean, it's not going to really touch what's making Qiyana really strong, so it doesn't matter. Rumble, passive on-hit damage cap against monsters decreased. It's going to be down by 40. Which is pretty big. Okay, that's actually really big for a Rumble jungle. Rumble in the jungle is pretty complex for people to just pick up and learn. You actually have to dedicate a lot of time to him. Seeing him just get hit outright is a little bit sad, but whatever. Ryze, base health growth increase, base stats. Health growth is going to go up by 12 per level to 110, which is actually, I mean, that's quite sizable. One of the issues that Ryze is having compared to previous seasons is he lost the HP from Rod of Ages. Now, I understand that Everfrost has HP as well. He also lost HP from some other items that he used to be able to build. He also lost effective EHP, or he lost EHP, effective HP, due to the loss of Seraph's Embrace. So the active on Seraph's Embrace not being there means that Ryze can't really run forward with as much freedom as he used to have. His late game is still really, really strong in terms of being a machine gun and just dishing out tons of damage, but he is missing HP. And so while this isn't going to put Ryze back to where he was at before, it is a pretty sizable buff. I mean, when you think about what this does for his laning, it's quite nice. Senna, passive bonus attack range decrease. Q now scales with lethality. E now grants AP when camouflage. R damage ratio increase. So passive absolution. Bonus attack range per 20 misstacks, 25 to 20, and then Q piercing darkness now also scales with 160% lethality. So they're trying to shift Senna back into a lethality-centric utility type build because the Frostfire variant of her build was the thing that was really taking over everything. Now, one of the things that I will say about this is that there's an interesting thing here that, it's going to sound totally off the wall, but obviously Senna is known for her ability to do fasting Senna, which enables certain champions. And certain champions that go into bot lane as AD carries, most notably is Kalista in the AD carry thing. Lethality Senna is interesting because she can get access to a lot of lethality items relatively quickly, and she can hit like a truck, but also she works with like armor reduction champions. This is quite nice for like Wukong Senna, but it's also nice for like Senna Nasus down in bot lane because his E shreds so much of the target's armor as long as they're standing over it. So this is pretty interesting. E Curse of the Black Mist, bonus movement speed is going to go up, and now she has AP scalings. The thing is that I was theory crafting like where does she actually get AP ratios on any of the items, and I just can't actually think that there's any value to getting AP on her, so it doesn't make any sense to me. Seraphine, W base self and ally shields increase. W surround sound, base self shield 75 to 150 to 75 to 225. Base ally shield 50 to 100 to 50 to 150. So the base ally shield is actually pretty big. And the self shield also is pretty big at the later ranks. Now, these things are scaling by level, so you don't have to allocate points into it. It's just going to go up. So this is actually pretty nice. And the reason that I think that this is also nice, we're going to get to this later in the patch, is because of the Moonstone Renewer buff, which means that Seraphine's actually getting 2 buffs in one patch, which is pretty nice. Shaco, W damage ratio decreased, EAP ratio decreased. Okay, so AP Shaco is losing some value. I mean, that's literally it. It's just AP Shaco is losing value, and that's ultimately all that's going on there, and that's totally fine. Singed E cooldown now scales. E fling 10 to 8 seconds now at final rank. This is really big for his utility. I think Singed is actually sort of being slept on. Riot's patch note or clip note here is that even with the buff to Riftmaker in 11-10, Singe's poison of choice, he's still been underperforming across the board. This is kind of weird to me. I think Singed is actually in a really good spot, but I think that Singed is a hyper unique champion that requires you to dedicate a little bit of time and research if you're going to actually go in and start playing him. And so, I mean, I think that these buffs plus, you know, compounded with the Riftmaker buff is just actually really, really nice for him. I mean, this is a really nice change for sure. Teemo, W cooldown decreased. W move quick 17 to 14 seconds. Teemo's W is often overlooked. We're reducing its cooldown so he can more readily use the spells active and wield his power as a mobile mushroom monster. So the thing about Teemo is he's outranged by pretty much everyone, and with the way that resistances work right now, he's in a pretty weird spot. Now, one of his things is build order diversity, because he has a lot of different ways that he can utilize runes and builds and stuff, or maybe I should say that it's actually a lack thereof. Teemo has to, like, do a lot of different things in order to sort of be able to go even with a lot of champions in League right now, and giving him utility on his W, I mean, this is not it. While this might do something in like bully lanes where you're spacing with W or something, opponents should easily be able to play around this because the cooldown is just not sizable enough at all. A better way to probably do this would have been to maybe shave one, well no, because you max W last. Oh, actually no. You start putting points in W. I think you put what? You put like 3 points in or so you max Z and then you put 3 points in Q and then you max W or something like that. Generally, Teemo's W can actually sometimes, I guess, be max second without the 3 points in Q. But I think that a better way to go about this would have been to just shave off 1 second per rank in the spell. That would have been a better buff than what we're having here. But yeah, I think this is kind of a joke. Teemo needs more love. Urgot, W modified damage ratio decreased later, so he's getting hit even harder. It's going to be 2% towards the later stages, whatever. Items, top tank items. None Bramble Vest. Okay, armor is down by 5, and Bramble Vest reflect damage no longer scales with bonus armor. So what this means is that you're actually only taking it if you need the Grievous Wounds now, which means the item just got giga hit, but you will still be forced to buy it in certain lane matchups. Warmogs armor, so 3,000 maximum health to 1,100 bonus health. So one of the things that I was thinking about when you look at a change like this, Warmog itself comes with 800 HP on top of it, but generally you needed HP from other items. But the thing is that I feel like this is almost sort of placebo in the sense that you're still almost going to end up needing the same items in order to activate the passive on most champions that are going to be building Warmogs. So that one sounds a little bit weird, but you can check out, obviously, Freak's patch notes on down for more details. And I say that mostly because of, like, Overgrowth is already there, and I think Overgrowth counts as bonus HP as well, and all that good jazz. Maybe now you can get it with Overgrowth, Warmog, and just a Ruby Crystal, and maybe in that regard it's a buff, I guess. None Warden's Mail is definitely nice. Rock Solid, okay, Rock Solid damage reduction, 5 plus 0.35% maximum health, so it's a buff early game. All of these things are just buffs early game to the item, and then there's a breakpoint. So again, check out Freak's patch note rundown to see the breakpoints on the items. Moonstone Renewer, Starlit Grace Heal, and Shield Power per second, 4% up to 20% to 6% up to 30%, so it's getting an outright buff, even at the rank 1 if you immediately cast it. Now, the thing about Moonstone Renewer that is really slept on is that for champions that have shields or heals built into their kit inside of laning, so Lulu, Soraka, Karma in mid or top lane or something, or even AD carry, they can utilize the active of the Moonstone Renewer on them on their own abilities while they're having it up. So it's actually a steroid to their own kits, even when they're isolated away from the opponent. Now, for a champion like Soraka, this is really big. Getting 10% added onto your R. I mean, even in mid-game, if her R is hitting for 500 or something like that, and she has all the other amplifications from other items, she's just getting an extra 50 HP spread across 5 teammates. That's 250 extra healing that just goes out by pressing R. This is a really big deal. If her Q or her W is doing 300 or something, just getting an extra 30 thrown into it is just really big. Same thing goes for Lulu. This is really big for Ivern, his shield, because Ivern's still going to be a Moonstone enthusiast. I mean, sometimes he does have the option to go Shurelya's, and so we have all of that. Black Cleaver, carve armor reduction per stack, 4% to 24 to 5% to 30 at 6 stacks. This is good for like the bruisery Graves inside of the jungle, so I guess you could look at it as Graves is getting 2 kind of benefits. Black Cleaver is still kind of a weird item. This is a buff to Rost, however, up in top lane. Getting an extra 6% armor reduction on the opponent is a really big deal for Rost. And obviously, if you don't know who I'm referring to Darken Kane up in top lane. This is a nice buff. Immediately Rost and Graves both come to mind. I'm not sure about this for Alawi, and I know that I'm going to mention this later because originally Alawi was supposed to be on the list of champions that were getting buffed, but because they buffed Divine Sunderer and Black Cleaver, they opted not to do that. Now, the thing about Black Cleaver and Divine Sunderer, when you end up going both of them, is that they're kind of weird because Divine Blunderer gives you, it gives you armor and magic penetration, right, as its passive. But then Black Cleaver is shredding, and so the interaction with how they both work together, it gets kind of weird. But maybe you build both. I'm not sure. Okay, so I mean it's a nice buff, but yeah, Divine Blunderer. So this is probably just going to be Alawi's go-to item now. But I know that I just mentioned Alawi because we're on the topic of Black Cleaver. But there's a lot of other champions that are probably now just going to start building this, and it's mostly because of the Spellblade healing on melee is just going up by quite a bit. 65% for melee. It's going up 10% for ranged. So Spellblade empowered on hit damage is also going to go up by 2% of the target's maximum health. This is quite nice because in mid to late game, you're getting quite a sizable amount of damage added into it, and so this is going to tip the balance for some items now where Trinity Force and Divine Sunderer, it used to be Trinity Force probably just edging out the win in most cases, but now I think when you combine these two buffs, I think it's really big, so yeah. Frostfire Gauntlet. Snowbind, slow for range users, 25% plus 4% per 1,000 max HP to 12.5% plus 2%. Okay, I mean, they're just sort of killing the item for ranged users, and that's fine. Snowbind, cooldown for range users, 4 to 6. Okay, yeah, I mean, the item's just dead for ranged. I mean, that's totally fine. I really don't like when Riot does stuff like this, when they kill certain meta variants and they try to force it in a different direction. I understand when I was reading one of the threads on Twitter, it wasn't on Mark yet, or it was on another Rioter's Twitter, that they wanted the theme of the champions to be more akin to the items that they're building. So apparently, like, Frostfire Senna is not really Shadow ILZ, or it's not really Redeemed, or something like that, whereas Lethality is more in line or akin to her story or her theme. And I can understand the direction that Riot's going with the Vorthos, but I don't necessarily know why Frostfire Gauntlet can't be akin to Shadow Isles. I mean, who's to say that the Frostfire Gauntlet didn't end up in the Shadow Isles, or who's to say that Senna has never visited the Freylord or something like that? I don't know. It seems kind of weird. I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know. Whatever. Staff of Flowing Water. Okay, rapid self and ally empowerment, 20 to 40 AP, is going to go up by 5 AP. So Staff of Flowing Water is pretty weird. It is still something that you build, but it's definitely a lot more niche than it used to be when it was just the Moonstaff combo. Nowadays with Moonstaff and whatnot, because of the increase on, shielding and healing, the compound effects and whatnot, you end up going like Mikhail's and Redemption a lot more, or like Ardent Censer, more than you go Staff of Flowing Water in a lot of instances. Serpent's Fang. Shield Reaver, shield reduction for range users, 25 to 35%, definitely a nice buff again for like range champions, definitely a nice buff for like Graves or something. Okay, so this one's really interesting. Wardstone, Stirring Wardstone. So the total cost is now, okay, so this is removed. Total cost is going to be 1100, health 150, ability haste 10. This item can store up to 3 purchased control wards. Increase your stealth ward, totem ward, and control ward caps by 1. Okay, that's removed. Upgrade. Upon reaching level 13 and completing the support quest, automatically upgrades into Vigilant Wardstone. Okay. Automatically upgrades from Watchful Wardstone. Health is 150, ability haste 15. This item can store up to 3 purchased control wards. Increase your stealth ward, totem ward, and control ward caps by 1. Okay. Vigilant Wardstone now increases ability power, ability haste, bonus attack damage, and bonus health by 12%. So, this is an item that they're really trying to shove as being built, because now this is going to be the I mean, you have this and Magi's now, right? It's 2 really cheap legendary items. So one of the things that I actually think is going to happen here, okay, is Seraphine, Soraka, and Lulu and Karma, even if they go mid lane, come mid game, they will just purchase the support item. They will purchase the support item in mid game because they're no longer farming side waves, and it's very hard to come by gold. And they'll probably end up picking up this item, and then, or they'll pick up the support item and they'll try to complete it as like a mid to late game transitional item. I also think that the item, yeah, actually, I think that's probably the only way that we still see this item built. The way that I'm thinking about it off the top of my head. I think that the other mythics are just too important to power into, and I think that if you're, while it is 1100 gold, I just don't see you powering into it at all. And then also a 12% amp to bonus health, bonus AD, ability haste, and ability power. I mean, that doesn't really do anything when you don't have any of those. So it's like, it's kind of weird. Now, they gated the item by making it so that you had to complete the support item. I think that actually this is pretty broken maybe for Senna, but yeah, this is pretty broken for fasting Senna more than it is for anything else, actually. This is like Senna's Wardstone. Yeah, it's probably just most broken for fasting champions, and then the aforementioned lane enchanters that I already mentioned above. Okay, runes, Hail of Blades. Okay, wow, that just got kicked. Okay, Shaco got hit again. Biscuit Delivery, yeah, everyone get your cookies out, guys. 30 gold to 5 gold, because apparently it takes too long to learn about futures market. Yeah, I mean, Biscuit Delivery has become a staple in pro play. Yeah, I mean, I think it's totally ridiculous. Both in lane and in the jungle. Well, it became a thing in the jungle as a way to accelerate towards certain item purchases relative to full clears. These haste attacks were intended to aim lane sustain. Yeah, but I mean, they're not really done for that. I mean, just open up a pro game and see the amount of cookies literally sitting in the inventory. It's like walking into a market and seeing that, Oreos decided to go with some weird, completely unasked for flavor, like mayonnaise Oreos or something. Or like sour cream and mayonnaise Oreos edition. And not only does the flavor just outright disgust you, it literally looks like someone vomited over the cookie, and that's the display box with some like vile yellow, green, white, and yellow hue to the cookie. Like, no one wants to eat that. And that's pretty much what happens in pro play. Everyone just has their cookies in their inventories, and that's pretty much it. Okay, so that's it for the patch. Not really a competitive patch at all. And I don't think that it could ever be seen as such. Azir is probably bigger for solo queue than it is for competitive. Elise, only solo queue. Ezreal, doesn't matter. Graves, really big for both. Hecarim, really big for solo queue. I don't think for competitive. Lee Sin is noticeable, whatever. Leona is bigger for solo queue than it is for competitive because the trades are more frequent and whatnot. Yi is, I think it's probably a buff overall. Morgana, really big hit for competitive and solo queue. Nautilus, really big for both solo queue and competitive, I think. Qiyana, W Terror Shape, doesn't really matter. Rumble is a sizable hit. Ryze, really big for both. And then Senna, completely changed. Seraphine gets a lot of love this patch. Shaco gets hit in multiple ways this patch. Sin's very nice for him. Teemo, doesn't really matter for solo queue or competitive. Actually, I guess jungle Teemo benefits from this, right? He can run around the map more with W. He can gank better. I have no idea. W Purge out of left field. This is really just hitting a lot of options in competitive more so than solo queue. And then the items don't really matter. So now we'll go into the champions. Okay, so we got Project Sejuani. Honestly, this just looks like a chroma on a Leona skin. I hate to say it, it really does. I understand that she's apparently like riding a boar, but like the splash art is just a chroma on Leona skin. Project skins never really do it for me. I genuinely don't like project skins. Now, Project Mordekaiser does look like the final boss. This looks like Ultron met Shredder from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or something. Yeah, I mean, Mordekaiser looks like everything Ultron wishes that he could be. So the Mordekaiser project skin is actually pretty cool. It's unfortunate that Mordekaiser is not very cool as a champion. Please undo Mordekaiser, give him back his ghost. Anyways, okay, the Renekton skin actually looks like the dog from Black Mirror, if you guys ever saw that episode. And yeah, I mean, whatever. I mean, I saw the Project Renekton animations, and I do think that the skin does look really cool. It does look like a futuristic watchdog type thing. It doesn't have a crocodile-y vibe. Who is this? It looks like Senna, I guess? Is that Senna? Wait. Yeah, it's Senna. Okay. So, okay, it's Senna. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. She's protecting someone. That's cool. Splash art's cool. This looks like something from Ready Player One. I don't know why, but yeah, is there? Okay, that's fine. Silas. Okay, well, if that doesn't look like Lucifer Morningstar, I don't know what does. Although this has a very male vibe to it. I don't know if you guys saw. Shout out to the guy on Reddit that had the male Vi cosplay that he ended up doing with the arms. This really does just look like male Vi with the way that the splash art is. So I don't like the way that they went with this direction with the splash art, but it's whatever. But like anything in life, you got to know that not only when you want to be a prestige edition, you also want to grow out your hair and you want to have a totally different hairdo, okay? And everything's going to be a lot bigger, okay? So if you're looking for the prestige edition, you're also looking for a guy that, magically protects himself with more armor because he has more money. Well, this is the skin for you. Not only does it let you know that people that have more money apparently can protect themselves better and gain access to more equipment and more weaponry. I mean, what else is the skin really doing? I mean, Silas wasn't going to break out by himself now, was he? I mean, what is this skin? What is the message this skin's actually sending? Literally everything he has is just better. And I understand like that's sometimes like just like, I mean, prestige, right? But like, this is over the top for prestige. This is just actually kind of out there. This is kind of out there. I'll be honest. This is a little bit. I honestly, that hairdo is terrible. Like this guy, he needs a haircut. He actually, you know what? This is Bitcoin Silas. This is Bitcoin Silas. Okay, this is after the crash. There we go. I just solved it. Actually, now I understand why he's so upset. All right, we got Crypto Silas over here. Okay, what is this? I actually can't tell who this is. I mean, it looks really cool. It looks like Spider-Man meets Nightcrawler meets something. Iron Man. Varus. He's sitting on a wall like he's like crawling, or he's like gonna lunge at something. How is this Varus? Also, how do they fit two guys in one suit? See you in 2 weeks, guys.